Okay. Good morning. My name is Samantha Mirabal. I'm with Melco's application team. We're doing our DesignShop Talk today. See what questions you might have to get those answered. We're live on both Facebook and YouTube, so if you've got any questions, type them in on the chat. Don't send them privately. I won't see any of those. So just type them in on the chat, and if you see me looking off to the side, I have another monitor set up over here so I can try to keep track of what's going on since I'm here by myself. All right, let me make sure both platforms are up. There is YouTube, cool, and there is Facebook, so we are good to go. And make sure I turn on the sound. Looks like sound's on, cool. All right, well, with that, I'm gonna jump into the questions that were sent in ahead of time, and then we will see what else we can go over. Okay, so this was actually a question from last week that I wasn't sure how to show you guys how to do this, so I went, because how I do it's not really the correct way, so I wanted to go figure out how the correct way was. So how do you do your own pattern fills? Got the answer for you, so let's do it. All right, so good morning, Pammy Rock, thanks for joining. All right, so how you would create your own patterns is, first off, create a fill. So I'm just gonna do a square. All right, so I got myself a square. And then if you see this button here, you select your fill and you see this guy here, that's insert hole. I don't want to insert a hole, I want to insert a split line. Okay, so you draw whatever pattern you want to create. So let's say that's my pattern. I'm gonna hit enter. All right, so now if you, escape. So now you'll see I've got that just stamped on there once. Okay, well, we want to tile that. So we're going to come over here and you'll see right there is the split. Once you select that split line, all right, so how did I do that? Clicked on my fill. I did that down arrow. That's the baseline, that's the outline. And right there is that split that I just created. So notice up here in my property bar, I can change it to tiled. All right, so now I got a tiled split. I can play with how it patterns around, you know, the angles and all of that fun stuff. So let's say I want to overlap it, make it argyle-y. Is that a word? Argyle-y? Well, whatever, it is now. All right, so once you've got that, now you can select this guy, right? So I've got my pattern that I've kind of tested here. I'm going to right click, save custom shape. And here's where I was getting all messed up last week. You want to, instead, it's not a decorative, it's a save custom shape, and then down here, you're going to save it to patterns. So I'm going to call this test, and you'll notice I'm going to overwrite something. That's okay. So now, how do I use that now that I created it? So now that I've created it, I can draw a shape, I can go into the properties, and under pattern fill, I've got a test that I can apply, and there it is. There is the one I just created. See that? That kind of argyle-y, I'm calling it a word, sorry. So there's that pattern. So you can do that with whatever pattern you want. So basically you would go and draw using those split lines. So again, take your shape, right here, use the split line, and draw whatever you want. Once you have it drawn, you save it as a pattern, and then it'll pop up in that pattern list for you. Okay, so that was the one from last week that I kind of sat here. You guys stumped me for once, so that's cool. I like it. All right, if you have something digitized, how do you make it larger or smaller? Okay, so this is one that you have to use caution with, right? So can you scale, let's say you have a DST. Okay, so a DST file, I'm gonna go open one. File, open, oh, I don't have one. All right, I'm gonna go make one and then I'm gonna open one. All right, so I'm gonna do file, save as. I'm gonna save it as an EXP, same difference. EXP, DST, it's all the same. Well, all right, it's a different format, but the point is it's an expanded format. All right, so I've got my expanded format. Expanded formats do not have wireframe information on it. Okay, so how do you know it's expanded? If I click down on this, notice these all say expanded, which basically means it's a, you can see all those little X's. Those are the needle penetrations. So it's literally a list of coordinates where the machine goes and how it makes its stitches. Okay, so when you have expanded formats like this, you can't take a 3-inch design and turn it into a 15-inch design and expect it to sew well. All right. Now, if you have an OFM, go for it. I mean, OFMs are wireframe based, they're math based, they have properties. You want to scale it up or down, it's going to adjust accordingly. So notice the difference. If I pull these down, these are actually wireframes with distance and parameters associated with it all. So scaling it, it's going to add more stitches for those filled areas, things like that. All right, so back to the original question. How do I make this bigger or smaller? Well, select the design. All right, you can select it at the top. You can do Control A. You can draw a big box around it, but basically select everything. Once it's selected, down here you have this W or the H. It doesn't matter which you click on, pick one. It'll bring you to the same box. All right. And the reason I like doing it this way is you can do it, you can keep track of how big or small you're making it. A lot of folk, the rule of thumb, I think, is plus or minus 10 to 20%. I know some will say as much as 30%. The smaller you scale it, the better, in my opinion. But so if I want to make it bigger, let's say by 20%, I can say, all right, scale it with a scale locked. It's going to make it uniform. So I'm going to say scale the width up by 20%, and now it's 20% bigger. Okay, so it's as simple as that. So you can see it went from being a 3-inch design to a 3.6 inch or something like that. All right, same difference if you want to scale it down. Let me undo it because scaling a scale is not really a good idea. So if you want to scale it down here, I can say, okay, let's make it 80%, and now it's smaller. Okay, so it's pretty much that simple of scaling. Now, if you want to scale it visually, and what I mean by that is dragging things around, again, select everything, and you'll notice it puts a box around it with black handles. That's your scale mode, right? So I can scale this all over the place. Now, do I want to do that? Probably not. If you hold Shift, it'll lock X and Y, so it's uniform. If you hold Shift and Alt, notice how it's scaling from the center. Okay, so let's say I want it that big. So you can scale it that way. So scaling's really easy. You can do it by number down here. If you know you want it to be exactly 2.5 inches wide, cool, I can make it exactly 2.5 inches wide. You can do it by percentage, typing in your percentages, or you can do it visually by dragging stuff around. Okay. All right, so what else do we have? Where's my slides? That's not them. That's them. All right. Where do I download the 64-bit version of DesignShop? There's not one. It's one download. It goes into the x86 folder because it's not a 64-bit version. There's only one version to download. So that's easy. All right, so this one's interesting. How can I get the closest colors of my thread chart to match closer to the design I open? So here's the thing with that. When you open files, particularly a DST and EXP, this is how they show up in crazy system colors. And that's because these files do not save color information, right? If I go and open OFM save color information for whatever chart it was selected, right? So this has it selected for the arc chart. Well, let's say on here, you don't have arc threads and you want the closest match to the Madeira threads. How do you change that? Over here, these are the active colors. It tells you there are 4 colors in this design. Well, if you right click on one of those and go edit color, I can then select what chart I want to match. So let's say I want to match the Paula Neon, and I can say match chart and hit apply, and it will match all the colors and change them all to be Madeira colors. Okay, so you can easily adjust it. Now let's say you wanted to change that to an isochord 40. So let's say you want to match isochord. I can say match chart, apply, and now these are all isochord colors. Okay, so that's going to be your match. Now, depending on what software created the file, so if you open up a file that saves color information, which is going to be your Jeff, your Huss, your PES, trying to think which other ones, Art files, all of those save color information in the file. Depending on what software created it, it's going to save them in weird RGB formats so that when we open it, it may not be exact. I know personally I'll always open a few of them. I'll open the Art, the Pess, and the Jeff, and the Huss, and whichever one's closest, I'll then match to that one. That's just what I do personally. And another way you can do it, let's say they did it in a rayon color, right? So, and this I actually do quite a bit. So let's say your color chart that file that you bought is done in rayon, right? So all the colors, I'm just putting these in rayon color real quick so I can match it. I will purposely go and color it using the chart that they said it was. Yeah. And then I will color match it to the threads I actually have, because I don't have I don't stock the rayon colors. All right. Color, make that one rayon. All right, I'm making it really ugly. But, so I'll actually color these to be the rayon colors, and then I'll go edit color, change the color chart to what I want it to be, and say match chart, apply. And now these are all polyneon colors, which is, I have one of everything. So I'll do that quite often too. So I'll color the colors to whatever the designer said it was supposed to be, and then I'll auto match to whatever threads I actually have. And that gets it relatively close usually. Okay. We have a typed in question. Can you show how to digitize a border around a puff letter or puff element so that it shows once the item is bordered on top, you can see the border around? So borders around puff, I personally always put underneath the item. Okay, so let me see if, I think I have a few puff designs already done that I can pull up to show you. Where are they? Dropbox. Where's Melco? Melco. Puff. Trying to remember which one has a border. I don't remember which one does. That one does. Okay. So I always do them like this, the exact same way this is done. So the border is sewn first. Too much overlay is needed for underneath placement. Well, you really can't do borders on top of the puff and expect it to look well. I guess I don't. Oh, how much overlay is needed for underneath placement? Okay, got it. Sorry, I read what you just typed in wrong. Okay, so here's an example. So this is done by doing the borders first. So because you're doing that without puff. So you sew all that first, you hit pause on the machine or a hold, you put your puff down, and then you sew your puff design. Overall, you'll notice the overlap's pretty large here. I usually go about the same way. So this is a 36 point element, so about half of that, 18 points overlap is what's done here. And I do this for even regular text. I'll do the border first and then the letter on top because I like the look of it. And that way I can guarantee there's no gap right here because I've got overlap between the two elements. So I would say about half the width of what you want sticking out needs to go under the puff. So if you're aiming for a 40 point column right here, I would say, 18 to 20 points underneath and the other 18 to 20 points hanging out is what I would recommend. But this way works really well. The reason you want so much overlay is to make sure you don't have gaps along here and it sews out nice and clean. Okay, so Cayetana Nelson, does that help? So I'd say if you're aiming for 20 points of a border, put 20 underneath the element and 20 outside. So if you use a single line center, that's easy. It's just a single line center right along the edge of your shape. So that would be my recommendation. All right, what else do we have? All right, we talked about that one. How do I add fonts I purchased where I can use them with the keyboard? Not easily. So we do, it's really not a thing. Generally when you buy those fonts, they are done as individual files. So you've got, you know, a 1-inch A, a 2-inch A, a 3-inch A, and half-inch A. You know, you have a whole bunch of DST files, or whatever format you bought, and you have to insert them one at a time, right? So you'll go to DesignShop, and you'll go open up your font. Let's see, things I've bought, fonts, where are fonts? Under F. There we go. I don't think I like any of these. No, I can't use those. Whatever. So I'd insert one, and then I go find the next letter I want and insert that. Yeah, cancel that. Copy, go to my other file, paste, move over, and, you know, add your trims in and do things like that. You can attempt to put it in the Alphabet editor, creating your own font. So check out our videos on the editor here, but you got to be really careful with that, that you're using it in the size that it was designed for. Because the Alphabet editor, I think everything has to be 1-inch digitized or something like that, and scaling it around is not a good idea because these are all DST files and things like that. So you can try that, but it's going to be better to just input each letter one at a time. Or you can buy computer fonts and then type to your heart's content, right? So for instance, under here, these are all computer fonts. So like maybe that one. Hello. There. So that's not a pre-digitized font, that's a computer font, and I can type it in with my keyboard and move along. It's pretty. Okay, let's see. Oops, what else do we have? All right, I did all those. I had an issue and not sure how to correct mid-sew out. I forgot to do the thread color placements. Well, that's all right. So I'm not quite sure about this question. So the first few colors sewed out as expected. Then I realized the next colors were wrong. So that just means you didn't set up your color change. All you got to do is stop it, go into your color sequence and set the colors to what they need to be. And then you'll probably have to back up and go rerun the sections that you need to. Hopefully you stop the machine and that's not an issue, but you would change your colors, you know, back up to the start of the color and make sure you're on that color and hit start, and it will sew it. So that one is not really a DesignShop thing. That's just a operating system. In the OS, just go change your colors to what they're supposed to be and then tell it to go. Even mid sew out, it will start following those new colors. At least mine does. Okay, so what was that next question? Was about a break object. Okay, so that's just a matter of using the tool right. So I saw your question in some of the other forums. So, all right, if I've got a shape and I drew a split line, right? If you click on one element and go to operations, the break object is done by selecting an element, and just with that element selected, go operations break object, and it will split these into multiple pieces. Now, if what you're trying to do is split across a line or something like that, it's not break object. Well, you can, but you can select with using control, select the two endpoints, and then use this guy here, split the element at selected point. And now you'll have that split into multiple elements, right? So the break object, typically I'll use more for when I've got a bunch of splices through elements and there's splice lines like that. Just select the shape, right click, operations, break object, and now it's in multiple pieces. Okay? So it's, you know, pretty much that simple. Now these are all separate colors that you can play with. Kind of looks like a flag of some sort. Anyway. All right. What other questions do we have? How do you transport a machine safely in your own vehicle? Well, one, you got to make sure your vehicle is tall enough to support it. Most vehicles don't have the height to get the machine in there. But it's really what you'll want to do is color change so that you're around needle 9, 8, around needle 9 or the middle of the needle case. So 8, 9, somewhere in there. Basically, you want to center it so you don't accidentally bump the needle case during transport. You can take off the 2 screws for the keypad, and that whole keypad will pop down. You'll need to undo the cable. Don't let it hang there. Hanging from cables is not good. So undo the cable, take the 2 screws out. Don't lose the screws. Put them back in. Even if the keypad's loose, put the screws back in the machine, and that way you won't lose them. My dog's dreaming. He's barking. All right, so you pull the screws out, take the keypad, set it aside, put it back, and make sure you undo the Ethernet cable and secure it so it's not going to get damaged. Tape it to the machine or something. And that's about it. Pick it up and shove it in your car. Like I said, just make sure the height is tall enough. You might have to push down the thread tubes. You can push those down just like they come to you when they're new. They're pushed down pretty far. So you can push those guys down. But it's pretty much that simple. Slide it in your car. The cover, depending on which model you have, if you've got the black cover that covers the box that holds the main board, you can take that off just so you don't accidentally grab that and drop things. I would recommend taking that off and setting it aside while you're doing big motions. That way you're grabbing metal and don't accidentally pick up the plastic and throw yourself on the floor. So that would be my only suggestion. In general, I do not recommend transporting it on the actual pushing cart. That raises the center of gravity way up, so if you get into a scenario where you're dodging traffic, it just encourages it more to want to fall over. And having repaired a crashed machine, let's not invite that. So that would be my only suggestion. And when all right, this is completely irrelevant, but I had to fix a machine once with a friend of mine that was dropped off of a forklift. They were pulling it off of a shipping, way up high. They grabbed the crate wrong, and as they were trying to pull it off the shelf, the whole crate fell. It was like 3 shelves up. So think about it like a Costco warehouse, way up high. That's where they dropped it from. Hey, but the machine runs now, so that was fun. All right, let's see what else we have. If I purchase a design and 2 areas are connected that shouldn't be, is there a way to separate them? It's the shirt and the hand have to be the same. It's the shirt and hand have to be the same color. I don't understand, but okay. So yeah, you can split stuff, right? So let me go to that EXP. I'm assuming what you have is an expanded format. Okay. So I'm just going to do it with this one because I have it up. So let's say we want all these pairs to be different colors. Okay. You got to figure out what stitch you want to split it at, right? So sometimes, particularly if you're dealing with fills, that's half the battle. What you can do is navigate through with arrows. So what did I just do? I selected the element. I came up here, clicked on expanded editing mode, and then I clicked on one of the points. Now on my keyboard, I'm using my arrows to kind of navigate through. So let's say I want to go to there, and that's part of the underlay. That's where I want to split it. So I can insert trim, and now you'll see that split, right? So if I want to split mid-fill, that's where it becomes a little more interesting. You've got to kind of navigate your way through until you figure out where it is you want to split it. So let's say I want to split right there. Not that I want to split there, but let's just pretend, right? So I can say, all right, split, or insert trim is what I did. And now you'll see, now this by itself poses issues, all right? Because there's not, where I just cut it, there's not a designed in trim. So you're gonna have to be aware of that and go manually digitize an element before here so that you have a tie-in stitch. Otherwise, when it goes to this color, it'll just start sewing with no lock stitch and you'll have issues with it, right? So at the end of this one, I would want to do something because it's not being covered up. This is top stitching. So if you split at your top stitching, you've got to pay attention to the fact that there's not going to be a tie-in and tie-off, so you're going to have to do something. So like for the orange, it ends there, so maybe I want to just do a quick running stitch like that, so that it will be under the blue section that sews. And then for this blue section, maybe before it, rather than starting right there, I want a running stitch coming down to it again, so it covers. And I have a lock stitch where it starts. So just pay attention if you are cutting top stitching. When you split it, there's no knots. There's no lock stitch for a tie-in or the tie-off. So you got to be cognizant of that. Okay, so first fruit, Corbin, did that help you? Hopefully it did. Yeah, but that's all there is to it. You find where you want to split it, find that point, insert trim. And now I can make it another color. Okay, just be very careful when you do that sort of thing to think about whether it's going to get sewn over again so that you don't have to worry about it unraveling. If it's not, make sure you're doing something about that. Okay? So, in other words, think about it. All right. What's the difference between the Bravo packages? There's no such thing as a Bravo package anymore since 2022, I think. Might have been the year before. I always forget. Bravos are sold as just a machine. The only thing you can choose with the Bravos, the only things you can choose with the Bravos is the level of DesignShop software, whether you have editor, I even forget the pro, whatever level there. Someone says, can't you just add the tie-in? So it's an expanded file. So adding tie-ins to expanded don't always go how you think it should. It's better to add a wireframe element, in my opinion, so that you can control where the tie-in is. So it's because it's an expanded file type. Now, if you are splitting an element that's an OFM, it doesn't matter. You're right. Just put a tie-in and call it done. But because it's expanded, there's no math, there's no wireframe to it. It's just saying add a tie-in. It's not that simple, in my experience. Half the time it doesn't do it the way I want it to. So I like controlling it a little more than that. Okay, what's the difference between Bravo packages? Now, yeah, they're not sold like that anymore. So Bravo packages, it's just a machine. The machine is just a fixed thing. So there's no packages to it. It's just what level of DesignShop you get to it. Now, they used to sell them in ABC packages, and it varied the what hoops you got, what the sew field was, and those sorts of things. But they don't sell them that way anymore. So, okay. All right, so those were all the questions I had ahead of time. Let me scroll through and see if I missed any in the chat. We did that. I did that. Talked about that. Okay. What other questions might you guys have? Nothing for today? All right, so let's see. Next week, I'm aiming for Thursday. I got weekend travel for the next few weeks, so that should be fun. I hope these are helpful for you. Thanks, First Fruit Corbin. Thank you. Let us know what sort of things you want to learn about. We can try to incorporate those. Can you use a highlighter so we can see where your cursor is? How do I do that? I don't know how to use a highlighter. I'm happy to if someone can point me to it. I only know how to use the computer, so if there's a tool that does that automatically, let me know, and I'm more than happy to find it and use it. I just don't know of any tools that do that. I guess I could change my cursor size. How do I do that? I forgot. Display settings? No. I don't know. If anyone knows how, let me know. What was the font that I used for hello? Yeah. You can send any info over to applications@melco.com. I can see that email. So, yeah, that'd be cool. Thanks, Vidya. My hello. What font was that? I have no idea. Let me go find it. Did I close it? All right, let's see if I can find it. True Type. I think it was that one. Yeah. Authentica. That was that font. Isn't it pretty? I like that font. All right. Well, you guys have a fabulous weekend. I'm coaching crew tomorrow, so that will be entertaining. And then I'm driving. Does Design Shop ever go on sale, or is it ever discounted or updated? Yes, it gets updated. So yes, they have version changes periodically. So 9 to 10, 10 to 11, 11 to, that's periodically. They also have service packs. I know they've had 1 or 2 on V11 already since it's been out for a little bit. So I know they've had at least 1, which was bug fixes. So does it go on sale? I have no idea. I really don't know. I stay out of the sales altogether. I would recommend reaching out to your... There's a squirrel on my window. That's awesome. All right. I would recommend reaching out to your sales guy and asking them. They'll know. I do not know. I guess I could ask my sales guy. But I have no idea. All right. The squirrel is creepy. All right. Any other questions? Apparently I have to go chase squirrels off the house. All right, everyone. I will be back next Thursday. Hello, you. That's funny. Until then, have fun sewing, and I will talk to you next time. Yeah, squirrel ad. Literally, there's a squirrel on that window right there. It's freaking me out. I gotta go chase it off. So, all right. Natalie says they put it on sale randomly. So, there's that. But I stay out of the sales side. I don't know anything. All right, you guys have a fantastic weekend. I will talk to you next week. Bye, everyone.